The prospect of returning to yet another lockdown poses us all a challenging start to the new year. But my next guest might have some useful tips on how to look after your mental well-being during these unprecedented times. Joining us now, the psychotherapist, Lucy Beresford, and the A&E doctor, Alex George, who himself has recently started a campaign calling on Boris Johnson to meet with him to discuss improving mental health education in schools. Guys, lovely to have you on the programme this morning. OK, brass tacks. We're all feeling a bit grim this morning. I don't know about you, but I can speak personally that, you know, you wake up this morning knowing you're going to have to come in and read this news out hour after hour after hour, and it doesn't exactly fill me with joy. I mean, Lucy, to you first. I suppose the starting point in all of this is to say to people, you know, don't worry. You know, plenty of people will be feeling exactly the same as you this morning.
That's very true, and it does help to know that you're not alone, that other people are perhaps struggling, and that if you could reach out to them or they reach out to you, that can be very supportive. But the problem is we've already had 2 lockdowns. We know what they're like. The study from the University of Cambridge came out only recently, which talked about how negative the impact on the mental health of our young people in particular, the effect of lockdown 1 was, and now we're in lockdown 3. So our anxiety is partly about how to get through the current predicament, but it's also about knowing that it has this really long legacy of affecting and actually damaging our mental health. And I think the campaign that Dr. Alex is trying to initiate with Boris is absolutely spot on, because we all need to pay attention to our mental health. But we adults have quite a lot more resources available to us to take care of our mental health. Our younger people, let's say people under the age of about 22, they have fewer resources. They can't necessarily implement so many activities in order to protect their mental health. So we have to do that for them.
Alex, then an appropriate moment for you to tell us a bit more about your campaign, whether or not Mr. Johnson has answered the phone call yet and organised the meeting. But also tell us just a little bit. You know, you are someone who has worked on the front line during this pandemic. You yourself must have had to come up with some coping mechanisms.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, Neil. Good morning, Lucy. And first, thank you, Lucy, so much for your support. I think it's been very important to me to have experts such as yourself actually saying, Alex, what you're doing is right, and we do want change. I think that's what I've seen over the last few months. Ever since my brother passed away, I've been speaking, behind the scenes really to mental health organisations, some of the biggest ones in this country, educational leads, teachers, parents, students, schools, to find out more information about what's really going on and what we can change. And I think there's been a unanimous agreement that there needs to be change. There isn't enough support at schools. There's not enough education at an early enough age to prepare children properly for the challenge we face. And ultimately, just as Lucy said there, what this pandemic is going to do to the mental health of young people is quite honestly frightening. Suicide rates are on the rise, mental health diagnoses are increasing, and it scares me. I think it scares everyone, and I think everyone's ready for change. So that's why I started this campaign. I really want to speak to the Prime Minister and his team. I have had initial discussions with some of his team, and I'm very hopeful that we can arrange a meeting and that we can start making change, because this needs to happen. We're all ready for it to happen. So let's do it now before things get even worse than they already are.
I mean, Lucy, again, nodding along, as you were commenting there, Alex, I mean, it's now is the key word in all of that, isn't it, Lucy? Is making sure, is starting the preparations now for whatever lies down the road, and indeed making sure that young people are aware of the assistance that might be available to them.
Yes, 2 things to say about that. One, we've got a golden opportunity to, all of us, start protecting our mental health going forward. This isn't just about the pandemic. This isn't just about a sticking plaster for the next few weeks or months. This is about instituting some really important changes in schools, in education, in hospitals, and in the wider society to make sure that our mental health is protected going forward beyond the pandemic, when COVID is no more. But absolutely right. We need to reinforce the message to our young people that there are places where they can go, people that they can talk to, particularly Young Minds is a fantastic website. They've got brilliant helplines. So if you are struggling, that's where you can actually go and reach out and get some support. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Certainly in schools, we need to introduce mental health into the curriculum ASAP, particularly now we know that schools are going to be closing and exams are going to be cancelled. That's going to really affect the well-being of our young people, and they need to know that they've got some support. But also staying active, staying proactive. The way to get through a very difficult situation like this is to recognise what you can't change and recognise what you can change. There is a lot about this that we are not in control of, grown-ups as well as youngsters. But if we can focus on the things that we can change, which are things like sleep protocol, what we eat, how much exercise we're taking, how much we're interacting with other people, how much we're doing for other people, kind gestures for other people, make them feel great, but also make you feel good. How much nature we're immersing ourselves in, and I speak as someone who's based in central London, but there is quite a lot of nature that you can bring to you, spotting different leaves, having window boxes on your window so that birds can come to your window even if you don't have a garden. Lots of resources, lots of tips to make sure that every single day you've got some structure, you've got some self-care, and you've got people to talk to.
I just want to get a final word. There's so much information in there, Lucy, that we will retweet a little bit later on for people to get some ideas about. But Alex, just a final word from you. I mean, 2020 was clearly for many, many people an awful year. For you, more horrible than for most, I would suspect. How have you managed to hold on to the positivity that you've been able to express to our viewers this morning?
It's been very hard. It's been tough, and I think sometimes you just don't expect the situations you find yourself in life. There's a quote that actually got me through what happened with my brother, and there was life throws us into the deep end. At times with family and friends, we can overcome seemingly the most insurmountable challenges, and I believe that to be true. We get through it together ultimately, and we find a way. I've really kind of incorporated some of the tips that Lucy talked about there. I also live in central London, but I make sure I get outside, I walk every day, I try and get some natural light, I try and be around green spaces. Even if I had a busy day, I do 20, 30 minutes of exercise every day, and it really helps. And those little things add up to make a big difference. And what I would say, very importantly for children, like Lucy was saying, they can't necessarily do these things for themselves. We need to put them in place for them, help them, support them. What we're going to see, the fallout we're going to see after this pandemic is going to be huge, especially with what's just happened yesterday, closing the schools. It's going to get bigger. Let's not ignore it. Let's make change. So please, Boris Johnson and your team, can we meet and discuss some of the changes that we can make, some of the things we can do that will make a difference?
And just, Alex, just very, very briefly, because we are about to run out of time, what needs to happen in schools and at what age?
Okay, so, I mean, there's quite a few steps I'd like to make, but it needs to incorporate all children. We need to be going from years 3 and 4 years old all the way up to 18. We need to be integrating a really quality curriculum around mental health, teaching children about thoughts and feelings as they grow up, or how to look after themselves, what to do when things go wrong. We also need to teach teachers better around mental health, support them, because a lot of the things I've heard from teachers are saying, well, we've been asked to teach it, but we haven't been taught. We haven't been given the information. We haven't been supported ourselves. We need to support the teachers to do the job that they want to do. And we also need to provide support in all schools. I believe all schools should have a full-time counsellor. It will help with children, staying in school. If they're struggling, they can reach out for support there and have immediate support at hand. So those are just some of the things that I want to change. And those are things we can do. It can be done. It has been done in some schools. We need to make it nationwide, and it will make a difference, I'm sure.
Well, the one bit of advice that I will provide, and it's entirely inspired by the chess set over your right shoulder there, Alex, a game of correspondence chess. There are plenty of people around the world wanting to play with you. They're all out there waiting. Alex George, Lucy Beresford, wishing you both very, very well, and thanks for joining us on the programme this morning.
And you, Neil. Thank you. And you.